Hey everybody, it's Josh. It's 3 in the morning, so I figured I'd do a quick video because that's the way my life goes. You gotta get them in whenever you can, and I've just had so many things on my mind. God is pulling me in so many different directions, and I have to try to stop and focus on one, see which one He's guiding me towards the most. And tonight it was a weird one. So, as you can tell from the title of this, which I'm guessing I haven't even titled it yet, but but I was thinking about earlier. I was watching some random pastor. I don't even remember his name, but he was a really good-looking guy, and a really fit guy, and a really young guy. I say really young. He was probably early 30s. I'm guessing. But I was thinking about my own bias. And I know we are told to judge everyone by their fruits, but it is like an instinct in me and to just automatically assume that a skinny chef is not a good chef, right? Because if he's making such great food, why isn't he fat? And the same goes with a beautiful pastor or preacher or shepherd, even. I automatically think in my head, before I even hear a word out of their mouth, this guy just doesn't know, or this woman, this beautiful woman, they don't know. And one of the things that lead me to think this way is my own life experience. All right. So you see how wonderfully fit I am now. I got a little bit of muscle, but I'm packing on the pounds here, packing mass. I keep my winter coat on all year long. But when I was, twice in my life, once when I was 14 and 15, and then once when I was in my early 20s, the first time I lost right around 100 pounds. And I was, just going crazy, running every day, just trying to get a girl. And the second time it was also to get a girl. But I just felt like crap. I just felt like garbage in my life. I just got out of college, my one fabulous year in Georgia Southern College, and I just I was I was 320 pounds, I believe. It was disgusting. I was doing nothing but drinking, and the food down there that they gave us, it was all Southern comfort food, or Chick-fil-A was the only other restaurant on campus. So that's all I was eating, just like smoked sausage and mac and cheese and Chick-fil-A and fried chicken and just all the wrong things. If I even ate, you see me now, if I was to eat like half of that stuff now, I'd be like 500 pounds, because that's just the lot I was dealt in life, I guess. But when I lost all that weight, especially the second time, because the first time I was too young to really observe too much. But by the second time, I was starting to figure some things out in life, starting to understand. All of a sudden, these girls who never even took one little glance at me, just would have nothing to do with me, except for I was a party guy. So, I mean, I was fun to be around, but that was the extent of what they wanted to do with me. But all of a sudden, they were all in love with me. I mean, not all of them, but so many of them were. It's like I've just never seen it before. Now, I've just always thought you were such an amazing guy, and I just want to be around you, and I started to learn about psychology a lot more, the psychology of attraction, and obviously, everyone, not everyone, most people want a partner who is physically attractive, at least by their standards, and being in such great shape. I mean, I was like, training, like, here was my day. I would get up, I would go to work throwing lumber from one pile to another, like exotic lumber, which was sometimes like 200-300 pounds of board. I had help for the ones that were like over 100 pounds for sure. But that was my job all day. I got off, and then I went to the gym and lifted weights. Then I went to work delivering pizzas, and then I would get off and run about 6 miles a day. That was my regular day. So I was jacked. I mean, I was like fit. And so I started seeing the difference in how people treated me. And obviously there's self-confidence that comes, and there's the way you carry yourself when you lose all that weight. And I didn't know how to live in that type of world. Pretty much all of my friends were also, fit guys, good-looking guys. My friend group that I mainly hung out with, and they got girls all the time, and so they didn't understand that I'm going from someone who, hey, I'm just glad any one of the opposite sex is looking at me, to now I've got these women like beating down my door, and I'm like, what is happening? I'm not ready for this. I'm not built for this. I might be in shape, but my mind, man, in my mind, I was still that fat kid. And in my mind, I would always be that fat kid. I mean, I don't have to imagine too hard now, obviously. But you have this mentality, and any of you who've had weight issues or something and have lost weight, maybe you know what I'm talking about, but I just saw how different it was. And so I started getting these preconceived notions in my head about all kinds of things when it pertained to looks and appearance and all these things. And so I was watching this preacher, and I was like, well, he's not only a good-looking young guy, but he's also very well-spoken, like a great speaker. And I was like, so that's 3 strikes against him in my mind. In my mind, that is 3 strikes against him. Now, I don't know what his background was. I watched so many preachers and pastors and different sermons that, I'm not going to really dig into this guy's life. But I can almost guarantee you that his childhood was not that hard. And so, if so, that would be, I don't know, you can't have 4, but 4 strikes. 4 strikes, you've been out, right? So these are the things that I was sitting there thinking, and I was like, okay, so he's young. He doesn't have the wisdom of age. We gain so much wisdom in age. Now, I'm 44 years old, almost 45. That's, for a lot of you watching, that's still pretty young. But let me tell you, I have lived 10 lifetimes in my life. I have just been beaten down for so long that really aged me prematurely. I used to talk about a thing called the happiness curve. And you can Google it really if you want to wait till you're done with this video. All right. But what it was is a bunch of different studies about happiness by age. And what it showed was it was basically a big curve. So it starts out at about the age of 18. So 18, you're right here, right? And then it just goes like this, and like this, and you're at rock bottom at about, I would say, about my age, about early 40s to 50s. So in your 40s, you're usually, now this is the average, so obviously everybody's life is different. You can hit bottom at, I don't know, in your teens. Who knows? But you're scraping along the bottom and you're anywhere from your late 30s to your early 50s. And then something weird happens. Something very, very strange. What happens is the happiness level goes scraping that rock. It looks like you're done for, but there's nowhere else to go but up. And it goes off the charts. It goes higher than it's ever been by far. Up until usually the 70s. Like, and then it kind of just, it doesn't crash then, it just kind of levels out. And when I first read this, because I was looking at this when I was first saved, before I was even led back to Christ. I talked about it in some of my very early videos. And I was like, why? I was like, your body's falling apart. You know, there doesn't seem to be anything good about that. You're not young and vigorous. You know, everything seems to be, it should be the opposite, right? It should just be going down, you know. In fact, like, you know, it should be going up until, you know, your 30s, late 30s or 40s, and then crash. But God showed me exactly why that was, and it's pretty clear. You don't have to have a sign from God to figure that out. It is a combination of the wisdom of age, but it also is, and this is what I repeat like a parrot, you have to be broken to finally hear God's calling you. God's calling. You have to be broken. So what happens when we're scraping along rock bottom there? At the lowest level you can possibly get to? You start to hear it. You're walking through hell. That whole, however long it is, a decade, for me it was at least 13 years. I was not happy with life before that, really, but I was still okay, you know. I was average probably. And I was disabled at the age of 30, so that's when it started. So 30 to 42 was when I thought it couldn't get any lower, but it kept going lower. And I was like, are you kidding me? And obviously you guys know my story, walking through the woods, surrendered to God. 10 minutes late, not even 10 minutes later, white-tailed doe comes out, walks alongside me, goes chest deep into the water. The wind howls, the Holy Spirit enters me, and I am transformed forever. I've been seeing that a lot of you watching right now, a lot of you have been watching. I don't know who's watching right now, but thank you for watching. Are, 50 and above. And I started to see that trend going up, and I started to realize that that's who I'm going for. That's a target audience of who is ripe for salvation. Who is ripe for salvation? When you are in you're starting to lose your good looks, your body's breaking down, and people are, your parents have probably already died, or they're about to die, and they really are sick, or they're just hanging on, and maybe they're miserable, maybe they have dementia, maybe, and then, your kids are getting ready to leave the house, and or maybe your kids are just, wild, and, they've taken some years off your life. All of these things start, all the stresses, even the smallest ones, and then all the tragedy and trauma, the biggest ones, they start to crush you. And then you have a choice. You can either keep giving in to the childish escapements, the devil's manipulations, or you can finally turn your gaze to God and start taking it seriously. Because I get a lot of messages from people, and it's the same one saying, I'm not feeling it, I'm not getting that connection, and I know what it is, because I was impatient too. You're impatient, you expect it to just happen. But as Voddie Baucham says, one of the greatest pastors I've ever heard, Google him too, Voddie, I can't spell the Bachumba, I don't know, something like that. Just put in Voddie, Pastor Voddie. He says that we don't choose to be born again any more than we choose to be born in the first place. And that's true. We are getting that calling through our lives. And most of us are so happy with our life, and we're young and vigorous, and we got at least something going for us, don't we? We got at least something to hold on to. Until we don't. Until we start seeing, hey, there's something more to this. There's something more. There's a beckoning figure that is calling out. And it's time that maybe I should stop and start following this breadcrumb trail. Sorry, like I said, it's like past 3 a.m, so I'm a little tired, but I'm still jacked up. But that leads me to, okay, so you have the wisdom. And we're getting to why the wisdom of age is so important, because the happiness curve, on average, we are enlightened. We finally come to God in our, late 40s or 50s. If you've had a hard life at a much earlier age, we start to see it. And it's a real thing. It's been studied. And people in the study can't explain it. They can't. All they know is you've learned more, Of course you have. You know how to, when your body aches and pains, things to do to relieve it, because everybody has their own little methods, For me and my back, I've got so many different bullets in my arsenal that I just have to break out at different times. But when you find God, it all changes. So I don't trust, and this is just mainly just a bias thing. And this is not, if I hear a young, good-looking preacher who is spitting truth and spitting fire, I am like, wow, I don't care what you look like. But you're going to have a little bit more to break through, just in mind, because it's not fair to you. But to me, you don't know You don't know what rock bottom feels like. You don't know what brokenness truly feels like unless you've just had some big trauma. And it's very possible you have. And that leads you to God. But usually you're having that eureka moment later. Usually when you're young and you're like, wow, I'm a good speaker, yeah, I do. I love God, so I'm going to just go to the seminary school and become a preacher. And it's not the right reason to do that. And I didn't realize that most preachers weren't even born again until I was watching a channel called Wise Disciple. And he watches other content and kind of breaks it down. And they were talking about how a preacher met someone who was born again, and it reinvigorated their faith in God. And then the guy from Wise Disciple, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but check out his channel. It's amazing. He was saying it's true. We have to start seeking out these people. These are the ones on the front lines. I don't know if that's what he said, but that's what I'm saying. We're the ones on the front lines. We know we have that relationship with God, and it's strong. So it started me thinking, and I saw this a long time ago. Was Jesus this good-looking guy? Was Jesus that fit, male model that we see hanging on the cross in almost every church in the country? Was he? I don't think so. I think we've been lied to about that. Isaiah 53 tells us it is one of the greatest prophecies of Christ's coming. And it starts out, it gets into what he's going to look like and everything. For he grew up before him like a young plant, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no former majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And as for one whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. You guys should really read this chapter, because it goes into just amazing things that all the prophecies fulfilled. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. I mean, it is a beautiful picture of Christ. Not 1,000, but a couple, between 500 and 1,000 years before he was even born. I'm guessing. I could be wrong. It could be more like, right around 400 or 500 years. But listen, Christ was not a good-looking guy, because we're not supposed to be attracted to that beauty, that outer beauty. We're supposed to be attracted to that inner beauty. And when you are born again and reflecting God's love, let me tell you, you're like a model. You are like the most beautiful person I've ever seen. And people are going to be drawn to you. Now, obviously there's the ones who are being called are going to be drawn to you. The ones who aren't, who are still dead in their sins, no, they don't. They're not going to be called. They're not going to be drawn to anything because they are. Their eyes are just firmly shut. Eyes wide shut. Is it? Oh. But so we see, and maybe this is why I'm not really drawn to the pastors and preachers or priests or whatever who are young and good looking. I want at least one or two of the little criteria there. You got to be older. Your body's got to at least ache a little bit, you know? You got to have some kind of rough tragedy or trauma or series of relentless tragedies and traumas, preferably. You know, maybe you've lost half your family like Job, or your whole family like Job, except for your wife, right? The wife that was complaining. You have to be older. I don't really want a fit person either. Unless that fit person used to be fat. Or give me a fit person who's still pretty ugly, right? Have to have something going against you. Come on, give me something. Now, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of beautiful looking people who I'm just like, wow, that is incredible. And of course, God is working through all kinds of different people. It doesn't matter what you look like, but these are the things that when we have youth, when we have beauty, when we have talent to speak, you have the easy road there. Unless you have something else in your life that really just wrecked you, just made you broken, then you really don't have, for me, what it takes to be a good shepherd. You know, I was always like, maybe God made old people ache when the storms come so we could still have use. You know, because I've gotten that ache since I had the back problems. I can feel a storm coming for days. And then when a hurricane or something hits, like a tropical storm comes over us, oh man, it is pain. It is pain. And I'm like, maybe we're just meteorologists now. That's our purpose in life. And we know things, right? You got to have the wise elders. But a young, fit, hasn't been through the tragedy and trauma, is a great speaker. You are the devil's playground right there. You are going to be giving in to so many things in this world. And maybe that's why we see so many of these young, good-looking pastors and preachers having all these scandals, you know? There's so many churches that I hear about who, you know, hey, that guy's wife is sleeping with the pastor. Did you know that? It's like, what? That's like, go and read Corinthians, because that's the kind of stuff that happened in Corinth when the Apostle Paul was trying to shepherd them. They were having love triangles and orgies, and like they didn't think anything was wrong with it. They're Greeks, right? They're like, what are you talking about? Well, free love, man, free love. And Paul was like, oh, no. You are giving in to the exact things I'm telling you not to. That's like with the different lifestyle choices, right? I don't like to get into that a lot unless God is like driving me to that. But a lot of my friends are, gay or lesbian. A lot of them. I mean, my wife literally grew up in the DC club scene. So pretty much all of her friends are. So you could, I'm sure, I'm not the type of guy who's going there, you're going to hell, right? Because my very best friend is I've known since third grade, is bisexual. And I think he's just doing it because it's popular, but that is something that we have the things of this world and we think, well, Jesus says to love, right? So what's wrong with love? It just happens to be with somebody of the same sex. It's not about that. It's the same as somebody who's an adulterer. It's the same as someone who's having sex before marriage. It's the same thing. We are giving into temptation. And that's where the devil is trying to lead us. If we're giving into temptation of any kind, and we're always going to in some way, shape, or form. The difference between a devout Christian and someone who is a lukewarm or non-believer is that the devout, the born-again Christian, we are doing everything we can to not live in perpetual sin, while everyone else does not care at all. When we sin, we feel, I've always said, when I sin, especially the really bad sins, like I'm feeling like lust or I'm feeling rage, I start to feel the lash against my skin. I start to feel the nail going through my wrist or my feet. I start to feel the crown of thorns. I feel the sting of my sins. And I don't like it one bit. All right, it is approaching 4 a.m. So I'm getting off of here. I could probably talk until 4 the next morning easily, because that's the way I was just trying to describe it to one of my friends one time. And I think this was before I was led back to Christ. When you get that flow state, I don't know if you're an artist or a writer or a runner or an athlete, you have that, with the runner, it's called runner's high. I've always tried to be a writer, and there's this time where you just feel inspired. I'm sure artists get it too. You feel inspired to it's like something else is moving that brush or that pen. And the flow state is almost constant now that I've been born again. And I thought that it would wear off. I thought it would, because I used to watch those New Age spirituality videos where they're like, just beware, the dark night of the soul is coming. I'm like, no, I'm going to lose this. And I swear to you, it has never ended. Now, when I am in the absolute depths of chaos, that's the only time when it starts to feel not connected to God. Because that flow state to me is God working through me. And when I'm averting my gaze from God, it all starts to go away. But I try not to ever do that. I'm not perfect, but there are very few days when I don't feel that, at least for a large portion of the day. And it's just been incredible. And I'm telling you, it's different than some motivation. Like, you get motivation and you might feel that inspiration for a few days. Being born again, you feel that inspiration in a divine way forever. I mean, I'll let you know in a few years if it's still going, but it's going on 2 years now, and it has not gotten weaker. It has gotten stronger. As I said, I sit there and I write for hours. I read the Bible for hours. I watch Christian content. And then during the day, I go out and, worship and do my videos. So it's at least 6 to 10 hours, if not 6 to 12 hours a day. It's gone too long. I got to get off of here. I love you all so much. God bless.